Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. I'm your host, Nick Brlansky, and today we're going to talk about Danton Heinen because it feels as if his time in Pittsburgh may be coming to a close. If it's not already finished, it might be soon enough. He was scratched on Monday in favor of Jonathan Gruden when the Penguins took on the Anaheim Ducks, coincidentally, Danton Heinen's former team. So what that tells me is that Heinen is no longer blocking young talent, which is good for the Pittsburgh Penguins. You don't want somebody, and we'll get into it, that is performing the way that Danton Heinen has this season, blocking some of your younger players, because in this league, if you're not utilizing young talent and league minimum contracts, and specifically contracts that can be passed between the NHL and the AHL a little bit more freely than a guy like Danton Heinen's, you're probably not going to do very much in the regular season. You might, but you're going to struggle a little bit, and that's where the Pittsburgh Penguins have been. So it does not seem like Danton Heinen is going to be blocking younger players anymore. He shouldn't be getting a spot realistically right now over guys like Drew O'Connor. If healthy, Ryan Poehling. If healthy, Josh Archibald. Even Valtteri Puustinen. You know, I'm gonna bang that door down until it's actually a thing, but I really believe that Valtteri Puustinen deserves a slot way more than Danton Heinen does at this moment in time. Heinen hasn't been able to crack the lineup with multiple injuries. Poehling has been out. Archibald has been out for a couple of weeks now. And now you see Danton Heinen get the healthy scratch on Monday. That, to me, spells the beginning of the end for Heinen in Pittsburgh. He was brought back. Let's start a little bit further in the past now. He was brought back. I said earlier in this episode already that I commended the move, and most people did. And if they say they didn't, they're just lying, or they were quiet. They didn't flat out come out and oppose the move to bring back Danton Heinen, because he signed a 1-year, $1 million contract. And at the time, when you looked at what he was able to do last season with the Pittsburgh Penguins, that was a fantastic deal for Ron Hextall. Last season, Heinen played in 78 games for the Pittsburgh Penguins, scored 18 goals, and collected 33 points. What made it even more impressive, though, for Heinen, 15 of his 18 goals came at even strength. 15! That was tied for third on the Pittsburgh Penguins, only behind Jake Gensel and Sidney Crosby. He had more even strength goals than Evgeny Malkin, who did only play half a season last year, more than Jason Zucker, more than Kasperi Kapanen. He was playing at a high level. Now, the one thing that you could say about Heinen's season last year that was really the biggest negative is that there was a stretch of time, I said he played 78 games, he was never injured. There was a stretch of time, and it ended up being 4 straight games, where Danton Heinen was a healthy scratch for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Because he was in Mike Sullivan's doghouse. And what is the only way to really get into Mike Sullivan's doghouse? Because, let's be honest, Sullivan has a pretty long leash with a lot of his players, especially the veteran players that have been there before. So with Heinen being a new player, maybe the leash was a little bit shorter, but what really did him in was his defensive effectiveness. Mike Sullivan likes players who give a shit in the defensive zone. And Danton Heinen sometimes appears that he doesn't. That's not going to go well with the Penguins' bench boss. So we saw it last season. He got into Sullivan's doghouse. He got a couple healthy scratches in a row. When he came back, he only played, I believe, 4 minutes in his first game back last year. That was the only red flag, really. That maybe Mike Sullivan has a short leash with Danton Heinen. Similar to the way that Mike Sullivan had a short leash with Juuso Riikola. But there's only 2 or 3 or 4 players in Sullivan's 7 years that have really been in that big of a doghouse. And Heinen was one of them. So that was the only red flag. And not many people were raising it when Heinen got re-signed. But this year is not going well for him. 37 games played, 3 goals, and 11 points. And I know what you're going to be saying. Okay, the goals are down, but 11 points in 37 games, it's underperforming, but it's not abysmal. It's better than Teddy Blueger's only had 1 goal this year. But when you look at it a little closer, in the first 5 games of the season, Danton Heinen had 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists in 5 games. The third line was clicking. Kasperi Kapanen, Jeff Carter, Danton Heinen, and Pittsburgh Penguins fans were like, okay, this is fine. Is it sustainable? We don't know. But if they can do this, nobody expected them to be over a point per game. But if they could get somewhere along the lines of what they're doing right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins will be fine. The Pens have always needed a good third line, and people thought that maybe this could actually work this year. Well, since then, it has not been pretty for Danton Heinen. It really hasn't. 32 games since that opening 5. 0 goals, 5 assists, and 5 healthy scratches. I'm just going to say this pretty plain and simple. When you have as many healthy scratches as points in almost half of a season, that's not a good sign. And that's the nicest way I can put it. The worst way I could put it is you are not an NHL talent anymore. Do I genuinely believe that? No. I think Danton Heinen still has talent, still has ability, and still has value at the National Hockey League level. But maybe not with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Look at the landscape of this team. I don't think he fits in anymore. And I think you saw an indication of that on Monday when he was benched for a kid making his NHL debut. Not even one of the top prospects. Yes, Jonathan Gruden has been playing well at the AHL level. He had 5 goals in his previous 3 games before being called up. And he's a mid-tier prospect. Not to mention the fact that he can play center, which is something that Danton Heinen can't do. But when you look at Danton Heinen and when you look at the writing on the wall, it seems as if he's back in Sullivan's doghouse, and it seems as if there are so many more players that can take his position right now. Ryan Poehling's on the road to recovery. Josh Archibald is on the road to recovery. When those guys come back, do you think there is a snowball's chance in hell that Danton Heinen's going to get a roster spot over them? It's not going to happen. It's not. The biggest knock on the Pittsburgh Penguins, Ron Hextall, Mike Sullivan this season, and even last season, is they are too loyal to the veteran players on this team. They are too loyal to the older players on this team. It's the same thing. They don't utilize young talent enough. Well, we saw Gruden get in there Monday. We've seen Poulin a little bit this season. We have yet to see Valtteri Puustinen. We have yet to see Nathan Legare, although I don't think that we're going to see him. We've yet to see Alex Nylander. Maybe that's coming up. With the way the Penguins are playing right now, they're hanging on to a playoff spot by the skin of their teeth. Maybe they're looking at the layout and saying, okay, Jonathan Gruden in the lineup gives us more of a chance than Danton Heinen does. And maybe Heinen just doesn't fit with the team anymore. Hence the reason you see him getting sat for younger players in an organization that over the past couple of years has favored veterans in the same situation. So what's next for him? What could happen with Danton Heinen now? Because he's on your roster. He's taken up salary cap space. He's taken up a roster spot right now. He's just sitting in the press box every other game. So what is next? He could still be a valuable piece to somebody else. I can say that right now. That's what I'm saying. He's an NHL caliber player. Just probably not with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It just doesn't mesh with the way that they want to play. Whereas somewhere that I think he would fit in really well, maybe Edmonton, maybe Vancouver, but they have their own issues right now. Why is he valuable on the trade market? A stagnant trade market, but why is he valuable? He's cheap, $1 million. There's very little commitment to him. He's on a 1-year deal, and there's no restrictions. There's no clauses on his deal, so he can be sent anywhere without his say-so. The only thing is, you're not going to get much in return. The guy hasn't scored a goal since December, November. Yeah, since November. Actually, he hasn't scored a goal since October. You're not going to get very much in return, but you can't have him here on this roster for much longer if you're not going to use him. And use him properly, because Danton Heinen at 5, 6, 7 minutes a night, it's not going to get you what you want. Especially if you start him in the defensive zone, because he's already not great defensively. So you're putting him on his back leg and telling him, hey, we need the world from you, kid, and he's not going to be able to provide that. So at this point, you need to free up the roster spot, you need to free up the $1 million, and you need to give that to maybe a Jonathan Gruden. Keep Drew O'Connor up. Keep Drew O'Connor up and keep him in the lineup. Maybe he earns a spot over Ryan Poehling, and it's O'Connor, Bluger, and Archibald as a fourth line. I don't know. I don't have the lineup in front of me, but maybe that's a good fourth line for you. So you can try to trade him, but as we know, the trade market is right now historically slow. But if you can't move him in the next few weeks, you can't keep carrying him on the roster. Just put him on waivers. Just do it. Put him on the waivers. I guarantee that somebody's probably going to claim him. For $1 million, if they get him for free, they'll take him. Why not? That's a free asset that scored 18 goals last season. Why not do that? Even if it's Arizona. Yeah, here's a little bit of NHL talent. See if it can do anything for us. Maybe it's a team like Edmonton who says, yeah, cheap talent. We can do what we want with it. See if it works out here, and then put them on waivers if it doesn't, and restart the cycle again. The point is, the Penguins have no further use for Danton Heinen at this point. Yeah, maybe he turns it around somewhere and the Penguins look stupid, but at this point in time, what's the difference between having him turn out and pan out somewhere else and keeping him in the press box with the Pittsburgh Penguins? So I think his time is done, or it's nearing its end for Danton Heinen in Pittsburgh. That's going to do it for this episode of Penguins to Go. Make sure you check the feed for new episodes of Penguins to Go and new episodes of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.